Okay, so welcome uh, to this panel. Hopefully, everything should be running smoothly, and I apologize if I suddenly stop talking uh, in between sentences due to the delay in the voice. So I'll try and do my best to talk you to talk to everyone who's watching and listening. If you guys find it difficult to understand, or if it's not working, or if anything is not working naturally, then please just let me know. So let's get started. So welcome to this writing panel, which is centered around LGBT characters and also towards the traditional theories which, which centered around writing, such as Todorov and Prop. So we're going to be looking at examples and comparing them to pony fiction and how we could incorporate those into writing about yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm talking really slowly and just taking lots of breaks. I'll try my best to go through this as smoothly as I can. So, I don't want to spend too long on this. I just kind of want to go through everything that I want to talk about during this panel. Today we're going to be looking at story building, and I want to talk about character development, especially, which I think is important for creating a successful story, because the characters are those who take the story forwards. So, just some general things before we get started. No one has to share any information that they don't want to. I'm sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties at the moment. So please just bear with me, and then we'll get started as soon as we can. Okay, so sorry about that. So let's get started. So this, I want people to know that they do not have to share anything. Everyone has the right to feel comfortable. And this is for people to share their advice and their own opinions on how on previous experiences on writing stories, so we can all learn something from each of us. So I think we should have a moment to just think about these following questions that I have on the screen right now. So, what first one? Just think to yourself: what do you believe makes a successful writer? How how do they how are they able to make their writing successful? Okay, right. So I think I've fixed the echo situation. Uh, I'm gonna now continue, and hopefully it will not. Hopefully, I'm sorry if if it was confusing to start off with. If anyone wants to if anyone wants to just ping me on Discord or however you wish to contact me, then uh, no, just ping me via Discord if you feel that if there's something wrong with the stream, again with the lag and the repetitive voice. That was my mistake for that. So I do apologize. But anyway, let's get back to what we're talking about. So we wanna think about like stories we know. How are they so successful? How are they so memorable? What what do we remember most from them? Why are they so good? Why have they taken managed to get all this acclaim over the years, and managed to just develop this a love for them, depending whether it was a bestseller to start off with or developed a love over the years. Just think about what why is it successful? Uh, what what is it that makes the story something that people are going to read and read again and again and again? And that's and that is important, especially as a writer. You want to you, you want something that's going to catch people's attention. You're going to catch your audience's attention. So I'm going to move on. Okay, moving on. I'm going to move on to the next one. Who do you believe is a successful writer? Who do you believe has has been able to capture their audiences over the years? Why are their books so memorable? What is it that you like about them? Because the books, to start off with, when you publish a book, to start off with, no one knows who you are. So it's got to be a book that no one's ever written before. It's got to be memorable, original. So you want to kind of think about what the story is, and what you sorry, I'm sorry, I'm just struggling to get the words out. Sorry for stopping. So let's think about J.K. Rowling. What makes her so well known, other than just Harry Potter? What is it about Harry Potter that made her the author that a lot of people know today? What exactly did she write that made her just such a successful author, and just gained her this recognition as a writer? And finally, so we're going to talk about, obviously, MLP, and specifically fan fiction. So I'm going to be referring to film fiction quite a few times during this presentation. So what is your favorite? Why do you like? Why do you want to read it again and again and again? Why have you favored it, for example? Why did you enjoy it? What did it move you? Did it make you cry? Did it make you afraid? If it's like a horror story, did it scare you? Is it something that you would recommend to someone else to read? That's usually a good thing to think about. If you read a book that you really enjoy, you're probably going to tell someone about it, your friend or a neighbor or anything, or anyone. So what exactly did this piece of work do to make you want to tell others about it? Why is it so important? So we're going to just move on to the next slide. So for those, I don't know, this doesn't have to be on it can be a piece of paper, it could be on the computer, it could be whatever. It really doesn't matter. I want to keep it as simple as possible. Again, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit shy at the moment. I do apologize. Yeah, I'm but I still wanted to yeah but no, I felt that this would be would help think about specifically what you everyone wants to write, and what oh okay. So what I'm trying to say is we want to think about how we're going to plan out the story. Okay. All successful stories should or have been planned out. Sometimes that may not be true. You may get that odd story which has been written out just very without a significant plan, and then has been very successful, or it is usually planned out. So like a series of books, if an author wants to write a trilogy of some books, let's say The Hunger Games, you want to plan out what is going to happen in each of those 3 books. What is going to connect the three books together? What is the overall story in the series? What makes the books different, though, to each one? What happens in them that makes that book the separate to the other two books in, for example, a trilogy of books? How are the characters developed? What is different about them? What do they learn? What do they go through? What new opposition do they face? And how does that opposition carry on into the next story? Because from a personal perspective, I've written my fan fiction, the Armada trilogy. And so I've had to think about how I'm going to connect those three stories together in order for them to make sense from beginning to end. And it might not necessarily have to be in chronological order. Some stories can be either prequels or have a non-linear narrative. We'll get to that in a moment. So, but as an author, you need to plan out your story in a way that it will make sense. You want your audience to understand, your readers to understand what is happening. Did this character appear in this book? Did this character die? Especially if you killed off a character in one of your books, you don't want that character to appear in the second book or the sequel to that book, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense. Suddenly they're back, they're alive. It wouldn't be chronological, unless, of course, that book was a prequel. So it's important that you have a planned story from beginning, middle, and end. Your characters need to relate to the story. Sometimes that might not necessarily be the case. There could be random characters, which can still be enjoyable. But it's important not to confuse the reader. Are your characters related to what you're trying to share to your readers? Are they going to help move the story along? Are they characters who are going to help the main characters? Are they characters who are going to betray the characters or stop them? This is usually how, like with films and with other books, that these stories carry on because even though the problem may have been resolved in, let's say, the first book, a new problem which came from the original problem will arise. Henceforth, it will start the second story. So, and it's important that your characters change from the beginning to the end. They mustn't stay the same. And that's not to say that 1 minute this character is suddenly is like a knight at the beginning and then suddenly becomes a beggar. It's not necessarily that. What changes about them throughout the story? Do they have a better understanding of good and evil? Do they fall in love? Do they get married? What is the goal that they are trying to reach through the story? If the character doesn't have a goal, then the story will not move along, because then they're not trying to reach anything. They're happy with what they've got. They're not going to, go on the quest or carry on or do what is going to happen in the story, and then it would be very boring and it would end very quickly. Example, which I have written out on the 7th slide, but I'll go onto that in a moment. So like with the film Shrek, you have Shrek, the ogre, and he's alone in a swamp, and he is happy. So that's his starting character. Then I won't spoil the whole film for anyone who hasn't seen it, but you have the villain called Lord Farquaad, who pushes all the fairy tale creatures into a swamp. So now he's disturbed by all these creatures, and he's not alone, he's not happy. Boom, there you go. You've got a situation that the character is now in. So, and at first he has no friends. So, but as the movie goes along, as you'll watch, if you haven't seen it, I recommend you see it, because it's a good way of talking about, especially Prop Todorov, because they talk about because you can see in the characters what roles they play, how they change, so for Shrek, how do each of the characters contribute to his journey to get his swamp back? That's just an example. So almost every story, so this is Todorov's theory. We'll go on to linear narrative and non-linear narrative in just a moment. So almost every story has an equilibrium. I know it's a very difficult word to say. I promise I've practiced this, but it's very difficult to say. So everything is fine. Everyone is happy. Well, the main character is happy. Everyone is like, there's peace. There's everything. Usually stories follow with a disruption. There's a situation that arises that takes away that equilibrium and that peace. The disruption is there to get the story moving. Something is happening, something that the characters need to solve in order to return to that equilibrium. Then you get the recognition. They recognize that something is wrong. They realize that something isn't quite right, and they need to try and fix it. The attempt to repair is where the characters are trying to fix the situation, like they go on the quest, for example. So now, back to Shrek. Shrek realizes that he now needs to go and save Princess Fiona in order to get his swamp back. And then you have the restoration, which is the end of the story. It could be referred to as the new equilibrium. By that point, everything should be fixed. Everyone should be happy. The villain's been defeated, and there should be peace across the land, etc. So, an example I wrote down there is sort of pretty much relating to the theme of LGBT. I decided to just make up a rough draft of a story involving Twilight Sparkle and Rainbow Dash. So we have the equilibrium. Twilight Sparkle and Rainbow Dash are close friends since they met. So they've been very good friends. When Twilight arrived in Ponyville, Rainbow Dash met her, and then they defeated Nightmare Moon and became best friends since, with the exception of a few episodes where, Rainbow might be annoying or frustrating to her or her other friends, which of course is her character throughout the show. But anyway, focusing on this, so for the story to carry on, we have the disruption. Suddenly, there's a problem. So Twilight now needs to stay in Canterlot, and Rainbow needs to go to Cloudsdale for Wonderbolt training, let's say. This is just an example, of course. So both have similar problems. The recognition is that they realize that they won't be able to meet as often. The attempt to repair usually, again, is like in the last few minutes of the episodes. If you watch the show, then like they know what the problem is, so they're now trying to fix it. They're trying to resolve the issue. So for this example, they now want to spend as much time as they can. So this brings them together, and necessarily their feelings of friendship will increase, and they become closer, perhaps more than just friends. But that might not necessarily be the case. They could just still be best friends, or they could be or they could develop to be partners at the end of the story. So the restoration, both are now able to see each other, because now they fixed that problem. You need the attempt to repair to get back to the restoration. Otherwise, the disruption has not been resolved. So yeah, a good ending could be them getting together, or just simply being friends and just being, slightly closer and trying to enjoy as much time as they can together as friends. So it's important to think about how your story is going to move along. You need a beginning, middle, and end with those, not necessarily exactly those equivalents that Todorov made, Todorov even, I apologize, made in his theory, but it's a good starting base for when you're writing a story. So on to the continuation. I want to focus on narrative and theories. If people think I'm going too fast, again, just pin me. Okay, so let's go to props theory. I've already seen that some of you are writing in the chat about your theories, and again, it's good that you're sharing this stuff, and be happy more to correct me. I know some have corrected me on some things, and it actually that is useful, because I'm learning as I'm going along. Especially as a writer, you never stop learning. There is no such thing as the perfect writer. Yes, there are good writers, but there is no such thing as the perfect writer. You constantly learn. The more you write, the more you develop your writing skills. You develop your story skills, and that is natural. All you need to do is just keep practicing, especially with a genre that you like. With, for example, romance. You want to read some stories within that genre. You want to start out perhaps writing short stories, not necessarily long stories, and then slowly build up, try and get advice, try and get people to read your content. I know that can be quite difficult for some people, and I personally find that quite difficult as well. But I can assure you that it really will help you develop as a writer. So now we're going to look at this theory by Prop. So we have 7 main character types. I know that some people may have learned this in the past, either in like English class or back in education. I apologize if it is repetitive, but it's good to look at these things so we understand what they mean, and they can actually be really relevant to the story. So we have the hero, the villain, the donor, the princess's father, the helper, and the false hero. Usually you would only hear like there's the hero, the villain, the damsel in distress, and then perhaps the companion. But these character types are just as important for any story, really. So with the hero, usually the main character, they're the one who desires something, who wants to be in a better situation, who wants to be like with the girl, the princess, who wants to have the money, who wants to have the recognition, the fame from others around them. They're the one who goes on the quest, complete it, come back, and they're treated like a hero, hence their character type. You have now, this doesn't always necessarily have to be for every story, but usually the classics, like with fairy tales. So these two, Todorov and Prop, they studied fairy tales and similar stories. So they recognize that there is a theme within these stories that are very similar with how they work and how they go. So and how they again contribute to the story moving along. So the villain is the opposition. They are the ones who, like with a roadblock, they're the ones who are going to block the hero from succeeding in what they want to achieve. They are usually like how do I say it? Depicted as evil, as really bad, done bad things, like in descriptions, in like in writing. It doesn't necessarily have to be necessarily like the description doesn't have to necessarily write them as very mischievous characters. They could be as sometimes they could be actually the villain could appear right at the end of the story as like what do you call it, a cliffhanger, or like a surprise at the end. So and they suddenly reveal themselves, like Voldemort appeared near to the end of Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerer's Stone, and they are the ones who are trying to stop the hero achieving what they want or trying to cause the destruction. So onto the donor. Now, this doesn't necessarily, again, these things don't necessarily have to be human or animate objects or living things. It could be anything, really. They usually offer something to the hero. It can be information, it could be a special weapon, it could be magic, it could be anything, and that contributes to them trying to achieve their quest, and usually it can help like near to the end of the story. So like a good example is Sleeping Beauty, where the prince has his sword, his shield has been thrown aside by the dragon, and his sword is, the donor in some way, because he's been given this enchanted sword to slay Maleficent the dragon in order to get Sleeping Beauty, who is locked in a tower and fast asleep. Or again, it could be a person. So if you guys have seen the film Shazam, there is the figure himself, Shazam, who transfers the power to Billy Batson, who then becomes the superhero. Onto the princess. This can be referred to as the prize. Again, it doesn't have to necessarily be an actual princess. It is what the hero desires most. So you could, again, if we go back to Shrek, so we think of like perhaps the princess being Princess Fiona, but he's after his swamp in the first film, and that could be the princess. That's the one he's trying to achieve, because Lord Farquaad has, pretty much taken it to dump all these fairy tale creatures, and now he desires it. So again, he goes on a quest to save this other princess, Princess Fiona. Onto the princess father. This is usually this doesn't necessarily have to be a villain, but it's somewhat a an opposition, sort of a block for the hero to try and get past. The hero needs to try and persuade the princess's father to saying, I am the one who is going to save her or protect her, etc. And so but it's usually very difficult, and like the king, let's say, the princess's father, would at first say no. But as the hero shows that he is a true hero, like saving the princess, then he would change his mind and eventually, give the princess or whatever to the hero to marry or to have. Then you have the helper, two more. The helper is like the companion. They help the hero in their quest, and sometimes they actually do the one who they actually sometimes they save the day themselves. So like the hero might be at their lowest point, the villain is leaning over them, and they try and get and do what their quest, try and complete their quest, and save the hero actually from the villain themselves. And the false hero is, let's say, like if you watch Beauty and the Beast, Gaston, I would say, who is not only a villain, but you could say a false hero, because he takes the credit. People think he's amazing because he's handsome and really attractive, and he takes credit for lots of things, and sometimes it might actually be a character who might not necessarily want to take the credit, but does anyway. So I don't want to spend too long on that. We might, I think we should go to this section. So we're going to talk about specifically MLP, the show, the fanfics, and I want to talk about episodes because, again, they're written. It's writing. So you write so the writers themselves will write a story out, and then they'll write it into a script. But again, that doesn't necessarily have to be the way. It can be done in many other ways. But even though there's an overall story to the show, each episode might necessarily be their own story, like the slice of life episodes during the middle of the seasons, with like the story for that season, the main story being at the beginning and the end, usually in two-parters. Excuse me. So thinking about those, what did you like about some of the episodes? Did you like how they wrote about the characters, about the plot, and also what ones didn't you like? What ones confused you? What ones really that you didn't enjoy most? That made you confused or disappointed? How do you feel you could improve it? And we're going to talk about fan fiction and specifically how did the writing written by the fanfic user, how did the writing that they had written make the story enjoyable and rememberable? What is it that you liked? It's good to try and think about these things, about what specifically your audience wants to read, and that you can do your own thing in a sense, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But you want to but what is it that your audience, what are they wanting to read? What style of writing are they interested in? So not specifically the story itself, but the style of the writing. So so are they going to recognize your style of writing in the future? So like with authors, like well-known authors, sometimes you can recognize their writing from previous novels, previous series of books, when they write a new series of books or a completely different book which isn't related to a previous book that they've written. What is it that's similar? Now, already I've looked in the comments. Everyone is free to offer their advice on writing, whether they are reader or writer. Feel free to do that. And I think one thing that is important is that, again, you will develop your writing as a writer over the years. So what right now do you feel you could improve on over the years? But then also think positively about what are you good at writing about? What is your skill? What is it that you're really good at? Is it a genre? Is it a type of character? Is it a type of story? Is it writing about? Are you good at writing about locations? Are you good about writing plots? What is it that you're good at? It's important to get a good balance of what is your main skills as a writer, and what do you feel that and then what else you could improve on. But it's important that you don't let yourself down if audiences will not enjoy your story. I know from a personal perspective that people might not necessarily enjoy a story that I've written. I know that from publishing some fan fiction on FimFiction. Some people didn't like it. And so I would ask, what didn't you like? Always ask your audience, what is it that they liked and what is it that they feel that you could improve on? Because it will teach you what level of writing you are at, what exactly are you good at. Everyone is really good at writing about one thing than to another person who's good at writing another thing, and that's normal. And it's good to be able to share what you have, what skills you have with other people, especially in similar areas like writing. If you share your writing tips with other writers, they might learn something, and you might learn something from them sharing tips with you. And also, if you have any questions to ask, just leave it in the area. In the area. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm mumbling. Just message it in the writing stream audience, and I'm more than happy to answer it. Okay, so someone's asked, are there any suggestions on how to write a main character whose arc is that they become the bad guy? Oh, interesting. Well, I guess yes, Macbeth is a really good example. You have this character who is respected by, the king, start off with. Um, Again, feel free to correct me if I make a mistake. But to my knowledge, Macbeth was respected well by the king, and then when the king died, he became king. And you see him change as a character from being someone who is good, and then you see how he goes towards evil, especially with the witches. You can you can see how he is changing, um, and I'm sure there are other really good examples. I think there's the film Leatherface, which talks about the serial killer Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre film series. Uh, I haven't necessarily watched it myself, but I know that it talks about how the character became Leatherface himself, and how he transferred from good to evil. But then, like with reformed villains of the show, you could write about how a bad villain how a villain understands what they've done is wrong and their faults, and then they head back to good. So that uh, would be my opinion on that. Do you have any suggestions on building up relationship into becoming romantic without it coming across as contriv- contriv- contributed? Now, interesting. I don't usually write romance. So I think it's important to not over cliche something. And I know that can sound a bit, like not in the mean sense, but it's good to try and write why the characters like each other. What is it? Are they loyal to one another? Do they show kindness? What difficulties are they in? What situations are they in? Are they in two different, very, very different situations? Or are they in the same? And how does that affect their relationship near to the end of the story? What are the key points of writing an LGBT character that authors tend to go wrong? Well, unfortunately, I have written LGBT stories before. Some of them, but they're all privated, because I published one story, and um, it eventually people gave their opinion about it and how they would have written it. It didn't do so well, but what I found interesting was uh, how they tried to uh, on how what I did wrong, which they would do differently. I think one thing is, just over clichéing characters, and I think that's usually the same in like if you watch a television show or a film. How are the characters represented? Is it very stereotypical, or is it just like any? Is it not so stereotypically portrayed? So like you get and sadly you still get characters who are portrayed in a very stereotypical sense. Uh, Suggestions on characters who are incompetent and not meant to be funny, but writing them in a way that won't annoy most people. Oh, that's interesting. If you so like if we go back to Shrek, you get Donkey, who is necessarily an annoying character. We all see him; he annoys Shrek along his journey. But we come to fall for him. We enjoy his character. We find him funny. Not necessarily annoying. Yes, he can be annoying, but he's mostly funny. I think in a way, because Shrek didn't have any friends to start off with, he was alone in his swamp, and then Donkey came along, and even though he was annoying, he showed he developed this friendship in inverted commas with Shrek. He started so he started, he was going to be sold to someone, and then Shrek didn't want anything to do with him, and then they just became best friends, and you will see that throughout the movies. Sorry for pausing now. I'm just reading through you guys' comments, just so I can catch up on just some questions that I'm more than happy to answer. Yeah. So, like in Romeo and Juliet, this will be spoilers for some who don't know about it. But in the original play, I believe the two died at the end of the story. I mean, they're not LGBT, but they're but not not all romantic stories have to end in a have to end badly, but then necessarily they don't always have to end completely okay and everything's happy, everyone's happy, and it's all back to normal again. Okay. Interesting. Romeo and Juliet retelling, but queer it the heck up, and also have them both fake their death at the end and go to Hawaii to be happy together. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe if Shakespeare wrote that today, then maybe he would have written it in that sense. Yeah. But exactly. I mean, Romeo and Juliet is a great example, both from opposition, two different sides, families who don't get along together, and the two just come together, and just develop this friendship. Like, if you watch The Perfect Pair, I'm sure people have watched it. Like, that is pretty much based on Romeo and Juliet, and you just see how the two are so come from such different backgrounds. An apple family, a pear family, and those families have not been getting along for so many years, and then you just have these two characters completely from opposite ends of the spectrum and they come together, and that's a really success, and that's why I guess Romeo and Juliet is the greatest love story of all time, because it goes to show that love is powerful and will not and can't, and nothing will stand in that way, and nothing will stand in its way. Yeah, the kid-friendly version. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. So sorry, I was just reading the comments. Again, it's like if we go back to the episodes, um, definitely I think the perfect pair is one of those episodes which I think a lot of fans has enjoyed and talk about a lot. I've talked to people and I asked them about the episode, and they say it's one of their favorites. Um, and I agree, and I think it's absolutely, and I think that's just it definitely brings more drama into the show, and it's good. Also, I forgot to mention, it's always good to have drama in your story. Even if it's not necessarily a lot of drama, it's good to have some drama because it will get the audience interested in what is going to be coming next. If your story doesn't have a lot of drama, then it will kind of not it will the attention will not be uh, high, and perhaps your readers might not be interested in continuing on reading. So it's good to have drama in your story. What is coming next? What is the big surprise? Are readers trying to guess what what are readers trying to guess what is going to happen next? Like, is is one of the characters not telling the truth? Are they not who they seem? It's always good to keep them guessing. If readers are guessing uh, what is going to happen next, then that's good. You've captured your audience. Yeah, I would agree. I guess LGBT characters are depicted as happy. Not necessarily all the time, but yeah, like it's in the show. Like what I loved was that Lofty and Holiday, I saw them as aunts to Scootaloo, rather than obviously as a couple, but I saw them in the role as aunts to Scootaloo. And that's seeing that seeing that connection between Scootaloo and the pair of them is just is really sweet and just amazing. That that outfit they're there for her. And that's good. Your characters, especially you know your main characters, like your hero and your companions, they look out for one another. Like, yeah, they might have, you know, like you might like at the peak of the story, they might fall out and there might be an argument. Like in the movie, the characters argued and had a bit of a falling out. But near to the end, you then rebuild that trust in your characters. You then get them to trust one another and they become friends again. So like with with Twilight being captured by Tempest, and even though she fought with her friends wanted to come back and save her. So you have that conflict, but that's what makes the characters so believable, because they're not perfect, yet they stick together during a very difficult time, especially when their friend is in danger. If the false hero gets credit but wasn't being malicious about it, can it be count as that archetype? Yeah, like you can, mischievous or bad. They can be good. They could honestly be innocent characters who are mistaken for doing something really good, and but they don't necessarily have to, be 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 a conflict to the hero. So I think I have pretty much covered what I wanted to talk about for the panel. Again, I'm happy to talk about any questions or any perspectives on what those who are listening on what your perspective is on how to write characters, and how they are important to the story, important to the story, because that's that is the main thing. If your characters are not believable or relate to the story, then it will be confusing and will not interest your reader. Okay. So yeah, I think I've covered everything on what I wanted to talk about. So again, I'm more than happy to discuss anything that you want to discuss about. But other than that, thank you for coming to listen. And I apologize for being a little bit slow and repetitive and a little bit shy. Again, this is the first time that I've done a panel, but I'm privileged that I've been given the opportunity to do so. And thank you as well for everyone for listening.